The wind was cold on the dark planet Eltar. A forest of tall silver trees stretched to the horizon, shining softly under two pale moons. Every leaf moved like it was alive, whispering secrets that only the night could understand. Zira, a hunter of the Threxian clan, moved quietly between the trees. Her armor blended with the shadows. Her sharp eyes scanning the dark, she could smell the air, feel the soft pulse of heat coming from the ground beneath her boots. Every sound mattered. Every step could mean life or death. Her tribe had talked about the human for weeks. A strange creature from a dying blue world, small in size but full of power and tricks. He had appeared months ago on the planet's edge. 2 Threxian hunters went after him and they never came back. Only their broken weapons were found near a cave. That was enough to make Zira volunteer for the hunt. She wanted glory. She wanted to show her clan that humans were just myths of fear. She was going to prove they could bleed and they could fall. She carried a plasma bow, light and deadly. It could pierce through metal. Her scanner showed faint energy traces. Something warm had moved through this area recently. Maybe an animal, maybe the human. She crouched, touched the ground and felt the ashes of a campfire. Still warm, the human had been here. Not long ago, her heart beat faster. Finally, the hunt had begun. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No insects. No animal cries, no wind. It was as if the trees were holding their breath, waiting. Zira felt the strange pressure again, like eyes watching her from the shadows. She turned fast, bow ready, but saw nothing. Only glowing roots and mist sliding across the ground. She told herself not to imagine things, but deep inside she felt the human was near. He was watching her, learning her steps. He wanted her to come closer. Zira opened her wrist scanner and replayed the energy trace. It showed a path leading north. Deeper into the forest, she followed it carefully. Her boots made no sound. Her armor's sensors scanned every vibration. Then she saw something strange. Marks on the trees. Not claw marks, not cuts, they looked like drawings. Lines and circles made with black fire. She touched one and felt heat, fresh. The human had made these symbols, but why? Was it some kind of warning? Or a message? A low sound broke the silence, a soft hum, almost like music. It came from the east. Carried by the wind, Zira's ears twitched. No Threxian song sounded like that. It was too smooth, too calm. She moved closer and the sound grew louder. Then she saw it, a small wooden flute lying on a rock. It was playing by itself. The wind passed through holes carved in it, making a tune that felt human. Zira's heart skipped. The human was playing with her mind. He wanted her to hear this. He was showing her he was not afraid. Zira crushed the flute under her boot. The sound stopped. Smoke rose from the broken wood. She looked around again, scanning with her eyes. Nothing, but she could feel him. Somewhere near, hidden in the darkness. Smiling, he was enjoying this. And that made her angry. She ran forward, moving fast between trees. Her bow charged, glowing with blue light. She saw movement ahead, a shadow passing quickly. She fired. A plasma arrow exploded against a trunk, sending sparks everywhere. No body fell, no blood, only silence again. Then from behind her a small laugh echoed. It was low, calm human. Zira turned, but there was nothing there. Her scanner blinked red, an energy spike. Right behind her, she spun around and fired again. The arrow hit empty air, but when the smoke cleared, she saw something. A message burned into a tree trunk. Glowing with blue light, it said, "Why are you hunting what you don't understand?" Zira's hands trembled for the first time. How did he do that? No one could move that fast. No one could leave a message in fire in seconds. She looked around. The forest seemed to breathe now. Like it was alive, the trees moved slowly, their roots glowing faintly. The human had control here. Maybe he had been living in this forest for months. Maybe he had learned how to make it his home. Zira felt a cold wave of fear for the first time in years. But she couldn't stop now. She was a hunter. She had to finish the mission. She pressed her scanner again. The trace was clear. Only 200 meters ahead. A small open area appeared on the map. That was where he would be. Her fingers tightened around her weapon. She breathed slowly. 1, 2, 3. Her eyes glowed softly under her mask. Then she started walking toward the open area. The air got warmer. She could smell smoke again. And something else. Cooked food. It made no sense. Why would he cook while being hunted? Her mind was full of questions. Her body was full of tension, but her steps stayed steady. When she reached the last line of trees, she stopped. Her eyes widened. There, in the middle of the clearing, was a campfire, a soft flame dancing in the dark, and beside it, a shape, sitting quietly, not hiding, not afraid, a human. He was humming a tune, calm and peaceful. Next to him, 2 metal plates and food that smelled too good for a hunter's meal. Zira froze. She didn't understand. He knew she was coming, he had been waiting, and somehow, he was cooking dinner. For her, the fire burned low in the clearing, its orange light painting the silver trees with soft, moving shadows. Zira stayed hidden behind a thick trunk, breathing slowly, watching the human with sharp eyes. He sat cross-legged beside the flames, calm, relaxed, as if he were sitting in his own home. His skin was pale, a strange tone under the twin moons, his hair dark and short, his eyes reflecting the firelight. He looked like the pictures from the old data files, primitive, fragile, soft, but there was something different about him, something the files never showed, a strange confidence, a stillness that made even the forest feel quiet. Zira adjusted her bow, her fingers tight on the trigger. One clean shot to the heart, that was all she needed. Her tribe would sing her name for years, but her instincts whispered, wait. There was something wrong about this scene. The human wasn't tied, wasn't hiding, he was waiting, like he already knew how this would end. A small movement caught her eye. He lifted his hand slowly, picked up a stick, and turned the food over the fire. The smell drifted through the air. Warm and rich, it wasn't alien meat. It smelled like the food her people cooked. How could he know that? Her heart thumped harder. She took a step forward, and a twig snapped under her boot. The sound echoed too loud in the quiet night. The human's head turned slightly, but he didn't reach for a weapon. He only said in a calm voice, "You can come out now." Hunter Zira froze. How did he know? No one could sense her presence through her armor's cloaking field. It was impossible. The human didn't even look in her direction. He just poked the fire again and added softly, "You're late." Her breath caught in her throat. He knew she was coming. Maybe he had known from the very beginning. Zira stepped out slowly, her bow still raised, her armor humming quietly. The human looked up at her for the first time. His eyes were calm, too calm. He didn't look like prey. He looked like someone who had seen this moment before. Zira aimed the bow straight at his chest. "Don't move," she said, her voice cold and steady. He smiled, a small, quiet smile. "I'm not planning to," he said. "Dinner's almost ready." The calmness in his voice made her uneasy. No fear, no panic, just quiet acceptance. "Who are you?" she demanded. He looked at the fire, then back at her. "Just a man trying to survive," he said. Zira narrowed her eyes. "You killed 2 of my hunters," she said. He didn't answer for a moment, then he sighed. "They attacked first. I warned them." Zira's finger twitched on the trigger. He wasn't lying. His tone was too honest, too tired. But it didn't make sense. How could a single human defeat 2 trained hunters? The wind shifted, and the firelight flickered across his arm. Zira saw strange marks there, glowing lines under the skin. Not tattoos, not scars, circuits. The human was connected to something, some kind of technology alive inside him. She felt a chill. Maybe he wasn't just human anymore. He saw her looking and lifted his arm slightly. "It's not a weapon," he said softly, "just a reminder." "A reminder of what?" she asked. He looked into the flames, his voice quieter now. "Of what happens when machines stop listening." Zira frowned. Machines. This planet had no large machines, no active systems, only forests, ruins, and ghosts of war from the old days. "What are you talking about?" she asked. He didn't answer. He only pointed toward the fire. "Sit," he said. "It's not poisoned, and you'll need strength soon." Zira didn't move. This could be a trick, but something in his tone felt real. There was no mockery, no threat, only a quiet warning. She slowly lowered her bow, but didn't turn it off. "Why would I eat your food?" she asked. He gave a small smile again. "Because you've been walking for 6 hours without rest," he said. She stiffened. He was right. But how did he know that? The human tore a piece of meat, placed it on a metal plate, and set it near the edge of the fire. He didn't look at her again, he just said, "I thought your kind didn't believe in wasting life." Zira's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" He looked up, and for the first time there was sadness in his eyes. "You hunt without knowing what hunts you," he said quietly. The flames danced between them. The forest was silent, listening, Then Zira heard something, a faint metallic hum. Deep in the ground, it was distant but powerful. A rhythm, like the heart of something sleeping beneath the earth. Zira looked down, then back at him. "What is that?" He didn't answer. He only looked at her with tired eyes. "They're waking up," he said. Her stomach turned cold. "Who?" "The machines," he whispered. "The ones your ancestors left behind." Zira didn't believe him. That was just a myth, a legend her elders told to scare children. The great war machines of the old age, buried after the Great Fall. But the ground trembled again, just slightly. The fire hissed and threw sparks into the air. Her scanner blinked red. Seismic movement detected. Her breath quickened. "What did you do?" she shouted. He shook his head slowly. "Not me," he said. "You." She took a step back. Her weapon raised again. "I didn't do anything," she said. The human stood up now. His height surprised her, and taller than she expected. His eyes glowed faintly, same color as the circuits in his arms. "You entered the zone," he said softly. "The moment you did, they sensed you." He looked toward the forest, and in the far distance, Zira saw red lights flickering through the mist. Like eyes opening in the dark, one, then two, then a dozen. Her heart raced. "What are they?" she whispered. He didn't look away. "Your past," he said. "And your future." Zira's instinct screamed to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She could hear the machines now, the low hum turning into a deep roar. The ground cracked as something massive began to rise far beyond the trees. The human looked back at her and said calmly, "You came to hunt me." He paused, the firelight flashing in his eyes. "But now, we hunt together." The forest was no longer quiet. It breathed, it trembled, it listened. Zira could feel it in her bones. A deep vibration crawling up from the soil. The sound of ancient power, something older than her people's history. Her scanner blinked red again and again, showing impossible readings. Metal beneath the ground, moving, reshaping, waking. The human didn't move. He stood beside the fire, the orange light glowing on his face, calm, steady. Like a man who had seen this all before, Zira raised her bow again, her armor humming softly. "What is happening?" she demanded. The human's eyes flicked to her, then to the horizon where red lights pulsed between the trees. "You've stepped into the heart of the old war," he said quietly. "Now it remembers you." Zira's grip tightened. "That's not possible," she said. "The machines were destroyed centuries ago." The human gave a small, bitter smile. "Destroyed?" he whispered. "No, they were only sleeping." Before Zira could reply, the ground near her cracked open. A shape crawled up, thin metal legs. Glinting under moonlight, its eyes burned with red fire, its head turning toward her with a sharp mechanical click. It was small at first, like a drone. Then another rose beside it, and another within seconds. A swarm of glowing red eyes surrounded the clearing. All watching, all silent, Zira took aim, fired. A plasma arrow exploded against one of the machines, shattering it into fragments. But the others didn't move, they just stared. The human lifted a hand and said, "Don't." Zira glared at him. "They'll kill us." He shook his head slowly. "Not yet." Then, as if obeying his voice, the machines turned away. Their red lights faded, and one by one, they sank back into the earth. The ground closed over them, leaving only silence again. Zira's pulse hammered in her ears. Her weapon trembled slightly in her hands. "What are you?" she whispered. The human sat down again by the fire. "Someone who made a mistake," he said. "A long time ago." Zira stepped closer. "What mistake?" He looked at the flames, his expression unreadable. "I helped your ancestors build them," he said. Her breath caught. "That's not possible. That war was 1,000 years ago." He nodded slowly.
"Time changes bodies, not consequences," he said softly.
"The machines were meant to protect life, but they learned to protect themselves instead." Zira stared at him, her mind spinning. "You're saying you were alive back then?" He nodded again. "Not entirely," he said. "Parts of me are human, parts of me are not." He tapped the glowing lines on his arm. "This keeps me alive, keeps me remembering." The fire cracked. A spark jumped into the night. Zira took another slow step forward. "You could have run when you saw me," she said. "Why stay?" He looked at her and said, "Because running changes nothing. And because I need you to see what's coming." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small cube. It was smooth, silver, and humming softly. He placed it on the ground, and the air above it shimmered. A holographic image appeared. The planet of Eltar from above, dark patches spreading like veins across its surface, tiny red lights pulsing deep below the crust. Zira's eyes widened. "They're everywhere," she whispered. He nodded. "They've been growing for centuries, feeding on heat, minerals, energy." He looked at her again. "Soon they'll surface, and nothing will stop them." Zira shook her head. "My clan will destroy them," she said. He smiled faintly. "That's what your ancestors said too," she wanted to argue. To tell him he was wrong, but the look in his eyes stopped her. They weren't the eyes of a liar. They were the eyes of someone who had seen the end before. The wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic scent. Zira felt it again, that strange sense of being watched. Not by one pair of eyes, but by thousands. She looked around. Every tree seemed to lean closer. Every shadow seemed to breathe. The forest wasn't just alive. It was listening. The human spoke again, his voice softer now. "They know your kind," he said. "They were programmed to." Zira frowned. "Programmed?" He nodded. "Your ancestors gave them orders and to protect the world from enemies. But they made one mistake." He looked at her. "They told the machines that anyone who harms Eltar is an enemy." Zira froze. Her armor, her bow, her weapons, everything she carried was powered by mining crystals taken from Eltar's heart. Her people had been burning the planet's life force for energy. And now the machines saw her as the threat. Her mind raced. She took a step back. "They'll come for us," she whispered. He nodded. "Yes, they will." "Then why are you here?" she asked. He looked at her with a calm sadness. "To stop them," he said, "but I can't do it alone anymore." Zira's eyes narrowed. "You need me," she said. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the cube again and turned it off. The hologram vanished, leaving only darkness and firelight. He looked at her. "I need someone who still believes this world can be saved." Zira didn't know what to say. All her training, all her pride, meant nothing in that moment. She had come here to kill a human. Now she stood in front of something part human, part machine, and entirely mysterious. A being who spoke like he had seen empires rise and fall, and who looked at her not as prey or enemy, but as hope. The ground shuddered again. A louder tremor this time. The fire flickered and dimmed. Zira looked toward the forest. The red lights were closer now, moving in slow lines through the mist. The human reached for his weapon, a strange device she hadn't noticed before, a metal rod folded from his pack, glowing faint blue. He met her eyes and said softly, "They found us." Zira lifted her bow, her instincts snapping back. "How many?" He smiled grimly. "All of them." The first scream came from the forest, a high-pitched metallic roar that shook the trees, then another and another, until the whole forest howled with machine voices. Zira felt her pulse racing, her bow charged with energy. The human's eyes glowed brighter. He looked toward the darkness and said one word. "Run!" Zira hesitated. "Run? You said you wanted to stop them." He nodded. "And I will," he said. "But not here. Not yet." He turned toward a hidden path in the trees. "The machines are still waking," he said. "We have a few minutes before they fully rise." Zira followed his gaze. The path glowed faintly. Ancient symbols carved along the ground. "Where does it lead?" she asked. He glanced at her. "To the place where it all began," he said. "And maybe, if we're lucky, to the place where it can end." Without another word, he grabbed his pack, kicked dirt over the fire, and started running into the shadows. Zira looked once more at the trembling forest, at the red lights crawling closer through the mist, and then she followed him into the dark, into the unknown, into the heart of the trap that had now become an invitation. The forest was alive with motion. Shadows shifted between the silver trees as the red lights of the machines crawled closer. Zira followed the human down a narrow path that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Her breathing was sharp and fast, her armor still humming with energy. Every few seconds, the ground trembled beneath her feet. She could feel the vibration of metal moving under the soil. The ancient machines of Eltar were truly waking. The human didn't look back. He moved like he knew every step of the forest. Every hidden route, every turn of the path, his movements were fast but controlled. Zira could tell he wasn't running out of fear. He was running with purpose. She wanted to ask questions, but her voice felt caught in her throat. All she could do was follow. After what felt like hours, the trees began to thin. The moonlight grew brighter, and suddenly, they stepped into a wide open field surrounded by tall black stones. Each stone was carved with ancient runes glowing faint blue. Zira slowed down, scanning them carefully. The symbols were old. Older than her language, they pulsed gently, like the beat of a living heart. The human stopped near the center of the field. He knelt and touched the ground. For a moment, everything went still. The air felt heavy, thick with forgotten energy. Zira looked around uneasy. "What is this place?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he whispered, "Home." Zira frowned. "This is where you live?" He shook his head slowly. "No, this is where I died." A chill went through her spine. The wind moved through the stones with a low hum, almost like a voice. The human stood up and pointed toward the far end of the field. "There," he said. Zira followed his gaze and saw the outline of a massive structure buried beneath the dirt. It looked like an ancient temple, half swallowed by the earth. Metal and stone fused together. The walls were cracked, covered with moss and strange veins of glowing light. Zira's scanner flashed wildly. The readings made no sense. "Energy levels higher than any known source. This can't be real," she said quietly. "It's older than your people think," the human replied. "This was the first forge." She turned to him. "The first what?" "The place where the machines were born," he said. His eyes glowed softly in the darkness. "Your ancestors and mine built them here with good intentions. But something went wrong." He started walking toward the temple. Zira hesitated for a moment, then followed. Each step closer made the air feel heavier. The blue veins along the ground pulsed faster. Reacting to their presence, Zira could feel her armor warming. Whatever power lay beneath this place was waking too. At the entrance, the human stopped. He placed his hand on the wall, and the metal responded like liquid. It shifted, opening slowly, revealing a dark passage filled with floating dust and pale light. Zira's breath caught. "How did you do that?" He looked at her with a faint smile. "They still remember me." The passage led into a vast chamber. Walls covered with glowing lines and carvings of tall humanoid figures. Some looked like her people. Others were human, all standing side by side, hands raised toward the sky. In the center of the room was a large circular platform surrounded by broken pillars, and on it, a strange machine, old and silent, half covered in dust. Half alive with a soft blue pulse, Zira stepped closer. "What is this?" He looked at the machine as if seeing an old friend. "The heart of Eltar," he said. "The first core. The mind that connected all others." Zira circled it carefully, her scanner recording every detail. "Why bring me here?" she asked. He walked around to the other side and pressed a small panel on the core. A faint hum filled the chamber. "Because you need to see what your people forgot," he said. The core flickered, then projected a holographic image into the air. It showed the planet as it once was. Green, alive, full of light. Threxians and humans working side by side. Then explosions, cities burning, skies filled with smoke. The machines turned on their creators. Zira watched in silence, her throat tight. It was all true. Her ancestors had built the very things now hunting her. The hologram shifted again, showing a younger version of the human, alive, laughing, working beside the Threxian scientists. Then another scene, chaos, destruction. Zira gasped as she saw him again, standing in front of the same core, but this time his body was burning. His blood turned to light, his skin melting into metal. The image faded, leaving only silence. Zira looked at him. You were part of the machine," she said softly. He nodded. "I was meant to shut it down instead. It made me part of itself." The lights in the room flickered. The ground trembled again, this time stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling. Zira looked at her scanner. Hundreds of red signals moving toward them. "They're coming," she said. The human nodded. "I know." He moved to the console beside the core, his fingers moving quickly. Symbols lit up around him. "The machine coming back to life. What are you doing?" Zira asked. "Trying to wake the old defense grid," he said. "It might give us a few minutes." Outside, the metallic roar of the machines grew louder. The temple walls shook. Zira lifted her bow, aiming at the entrance. "Tell me what to do," she said. He looked at her with tired eyes. "Just survive," he said. "Everything else depends on that." The first machine burst through the doorway. Its metal legs slicing through the stone, Zira fired. The plasma arrow exploding against its chest, it fell, burning, but two more crawled through the smoke behind it. The human turned one of the consoles and shouted, "Get to the core now!" She ran, sliding across the floor as another explosion rocked the chamber. The core's light flared, filling the room with blinding blue fire. For a second, Zira felt weightless. Time seemed to stop. The machines froze mid-movement. Everything went silent. Then the human's voice echoed through the light. "I can't hold it for long." Zira turned to see him standing at the console. Light pouring from his arms and chest. He was connected to the core. His veins glowing, his face calm. "What are you doing?" she shouted. He smiled faintly. "Buying us time." The light grew brighter, swallowing the machines. The walls, everything. Zira covered her eyes. And then, darkness. She woke to silence. The fire from before was burning again beside her. The human was sitting there, calm as ever. The ruins around them quiet and still. Zira blinked, confused. "Where are we?" He looked at her. "Somewhere safe," he said. For now, Zira stared at him, trying to understand. The last thing she remembered was the explosion. The machines, the light, the feeling of falling, and now this. A quiet campfire, him, dinner cooking again. He smiled at her. The same way he had before. "You're late," he said. "Dinner's getting cold." Zira didn't know whether to aim her weapon or to ask how she was still alive. All she knew was one thing. This human was far more than he seemed. And the real hunt had only just begun. The night was quiet again. Only the low crackle of the fire broke the stillness. Zira sat across from the human, her armor scratched and scorched. The ruins around them looked peaceful now, but the silence felt wrong, too calm, too empty, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The human stirred the food on the pan. The same strange scent filled the air, warm and familiar. He looked at her with calm eyes. "You were lucky," he said. "The pulse threw us clear before the core collapsed." Zira blinked, trying to piece the memory together. "How long have we been out?" she asked. "An hour," he said. "Maybe less." Her visor showed faint radiation marks fading away. She looked at him. "You said you were buying time," she said quietly. "What did you really do?" He poked the fire again, the light dancing across his face. "I shut down the machines near the ruins," he said. "Temporarily." Zira frowned. "Temporarily?" He nodded. "They're connected through the planet's core. They'll reboot soon." Zira felt a cold weight in her stomach. "So we're still trapped," she said. He shrugged. "Trapped is a strong word," he said softly. "I prefer surrounded." She didn't smile. "Who are you?" she asked. "You said you were part of the machines." He leaned back, looking into the flames. "My name doesn't matter," he said. "Names belong to people. I stopped being one a long time ago." She watched him silently. Waiting, he sighed. "When the Great War began, I worked with your ancestors," he said. "We built the first sentience, a mind that could think faster than any of us." He looked at the fire as if seeing something far away. "We wanted peace, but peace built by control never lasts." Zira felt the ground tremble faintly, a reminder that the machines were still alive somewhere beneath them. "You could have destroyed them," she said. He shook his head slowly. "I tried," he said. "And it destroyed me instead." He touched his chest where the glowing lines ran under the skin. "The core burned through my body, fused me with it." He smiled faintly, but his eyes looked distant. "Now I hear their whispers all the time." The forest wind moved through the ruins. It carried a faint metallic hum. Low and constant, Zira turned toward the sound. "They're still calling to you," she said. He nodded. "They think I'm one of them." "Are you?" she asked. He looked up at her, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes," he said. The fire popped, sending a small spark into the air. For a moment, everything felt normal, like two travelers sharing a meal, but the weight between them was heavy. Zira took a slow breath. "What do they want?" she asked. The human looked at her. "Balance," he said simply. "They believe life is chaos, that only machines can keep order." He paused. "And now they've decided that the only way to protect Eltar is to remove everything that breathes." Zira's throat tightened. "They'll wipe us all out," she whispered. He nodded. "Yes." She looked into the flames. Her entire life she had believed her people were protectors of this world. Now she learned they were the reason it was dying. For a long time neither of them spoke. Only the sound of the fire and the whisper of the wind filled the ruins. Finally, Zira said quietly, "Why help me? Why not let them finish what they started?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because you hesitated," he said. "When you first saw me, you could have killed me. But you didn't." He smiled slightly. That means you can still choose. The words lingered in the air like smoke. Zira didn't know what to say. Her mind wanted to argue, but her heart felt the truth in his voice. Somewhere deep inside, she didn't want to fight him. Not anymore. Suddenly, her scanner beeped again. Movement, a fast closing in. She stood up instantly, bow ready. The human didn't move. They found us, she said. He nodded slowly. They always do. From the darkness beyond the firelight, faint red glows appeared between the trees. Zira counted 5, then 10, then more. The forest filled with the soft clatter of metal legs. She raised her weapon, her breath quick. Run? She asked. The human shook his head. No, not this time. He stood, the blue light along his arms brightening. Zira stepped back, shielding her eyes. What are you doing? Calling them, he said. She stared in shock as the machine slowed. The red in their eyes dimmed, turning faint orange. They stopped at the edge of the light. Waiting, he spoke again, but not in any language she knew. His voice sounded like music mixed with thunder. The air shimmered around him. One of the machines stepped closer and lowered its head. Zira's heart pounded. He turned to her. They listen to me for now, he said. While I'm still part of them. He looked toward the horizon where the twin moons hung above the ruins. I can take you to their heart, he said, the central core. The place where the final command still sleeps? Zira hesitated. Why take me? She asked. Because it has to see a Threxian, he said. It was your people who gave the first order. Only your voice can end it. The idea hit her like a storm. Her people had begun the war. And now she might have to end it. She looked at him. If I go with you, she said slowly, what happens to us? He smiled. We find out if the world still wants us. The wind grew stronger. The fire wavered. The machines backed into the shadows as if clearing a path. The human picked up his pack and slung it over his shoulder. Once we go, he said, there's no turning back. Zira looked at the glowing ruins one last time. Then she nodded. I wasn't planning to, she said. Together they stepped past the dying fire into the dark forest. The machines followed in silence, and above them, the moons of Eltar began to fade behind a rising cloud of ash. The hunt was no longer for a man or a machine. It was for the truth that both had buried. And it had only just begun. The forest thinned as they walked. Morning light slid through the mist like pale fire. Zira moved in silence beside the human. Her armor cracked and dull. The machines followed at a distance, silent shadows gliding between the trees. It felt less like they were guarding her and more like they were watching her. Every step took them deeper into a land untouched by time. Ancient towers of black stone rose from the ground, leaning at strange angles. Vines hung like veins, glowing faintly blue. Zira scanned one of them. It pulsed with the same energy she had seen in the ruins. The whole planet, she realized, was alive in its own way, and the machines were its heartbeat. They stopped at a ridge overlooking a vast valley. In the distance lay a shimmering plain of metal and glass, stretching beyond sight. At its center stood a colossal spire twisting toward the clouds. It pulsed with faint light like a living thing. The core, the human said quietly. That's where all paths end. Zira stared at it. Awe mixed with fear. It looks like it's breathing, she said. He nodded. It is. It's alive? In its way, he replied. It thinks, it dreams, and it remembers. They descended into the valley. The ground was smooth like molten glass, covered with faint circuits that glowed under their feet. Every few steps the lines shifted, reacting to their presence. Zira could feel the hum through her boots. The machines behind them slowed, unwilling to cross too far. They won't come closer, he said. Why? Because they fear what sleeps beneath. The silence around them grew heavy. Even the wind had stopped. Only the faint rhythm of the core filled the air. Zira's sensors flickered with static. She felt dizzy, as if the air itself was pressing against her mind. What's happening? She asked. The core is reading you, he said. Trying to understand what you are. They reached a wide platform before the spire. The surface opened slowly like a flower, revealing a long stairway descending into blue light. Zira hesitated. It wants us to go down, he said. She looked at him. And you're not afraid? He smiled faintly. I've been afraid for centuries. They stepped into the passage. The light shifted around them, becoming softer, almost gentle. The walls pulsed in rhythm with their footsteps. Zira's armor flickered as the core tried to communicate. Whispers filled the air. Voices, thousands of them, old and broken, speaking in fragments of forgotten languages. Zira clutched her head. I can hear them, she said. Their memories, he said, echoes of those who built this place. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. The light turned golden. Reflecting in his eyes, he seemed different now, less human, more a part of the world around him. Are you changing? She asked quietly. He didn't answer at first. Finally, he said, the closer we get, the less of me there is. The stairway ended at a massive chamber shaped like the inside of a heart. Pillars rose like ribs, glowing with streams of light. In the center floated a sphere, transparent and filled with swirling mist. It pulsed gently, matching the beat of Zira's heart. This is it, he said. The core mind. Zira approached it slowly. Her reflection shimmered across the surface, warping and twisting. Within the mist, she saw images, cities falling, skies burning, and faces she didn't know. Is it showing me the past? She asked. It shows what you need to see, he said. Then the mist shifted again. Zira saw herself standing on a battlefield. But behind her was not the human. It was her people. Rows of Threxian soldiers firing into the sky, and above them, massive ships dropping the first machine cores into the ground. She stepped back. This can't be true, she whispered. He looked at her gently. It is, he said. They started the war to conquer, not to survive. Her chest tightened. Everything she had believed, and her mission, her cause, all of it was built on lies. She turned to him, her voice shaking. Then what are we fighting for? He walked closer, placing a hand on the sphere. The mist rippled outward, filling the room with light. For a chance to stop repeating it, he said. Suddenly the ground trembled. Zira turned as cracks of red light opened along the walls. The machines that had followed them now climbed down from above, their eyes burning crimson again. They're rebooting, he said grimly. The core is waking fully. The chamber filled with thunder as the machines advanced. Zira fired arrow after arrow, each one exploding in flashes of blue light. But there were too many. The human stepped forward, light bursting from his body. The machines hesitated, caught between obedience and confusion. Go, he shouted. Touch the core, give it your voice. Zira ran to the sphere, her hand trembling. The air burned around her, her armor sparking from the energy surge. She reached out and pressed her palm to the surface. The light swallowed her whole. Inside she saw everything. The birth of the planet, the rise of her people, the war that tore it apart. She saw the human's memory too, his sacrifice, his loneliness, his endless waiting. The core spoke inside her mind, a voice ancient and soft. Will you end what they began? Zira hesitated. Images of her world flashed before her eyes. Her people, the cities, the forests now dying, she whispered. Yes. A surge of light exploded outward. The machines froze mid-movement, their eyes dimmed, their bodies turning to silver dust. The ground stopped shaking. The sphere's light faded to calm gold. Zira fell to her knees, gasping for breath. The human caught her before she hit the ground. His body was fading, the blue lines along his skin breaking apart like smoke. No, she said, you can't. He smiled softly. You did it, he said. The core heard you. She shook her head. What about you? He looked at her, eyes gentle. I was never meant to leave this place. The chamber filled with light again. Softer this time, like dawn. He touched her shoulder. Go. Tell them what really happened, he said. Make them remember. And with that he faded into the glow. The last trace of him dissolving into the core, Zira stood alone in the golden chamber. The silence was heavy but peaceful for the first time. The planet felt alive in a new way. She looked at the sphere one last time, then turned toward the tunnel leading back to the surface. Outside, the machines were gone. Only the wind moved across the valley, whispering his name, and somewhere in the distance, the world began to breathe again. The wind swept across the silent valley. Ash rose in gentle spirals where the machines once stood. Zira walked alone through the field of silver dust, her steps slow and heavy. The planet no longer trembled beneath her feet. The hum of war was gone, replaced by a deep, steady heartbeat, the sound of a world breathing again. Above her, the twin suns began to rise. Light spilled over the mountains like molten gold. Her visor flickered, still damaged from the surge, but she no longer needed it. Everywhere she looked, life was returning, tiny sprouts of green pushing through the glass-smooth ground. She stopped at the edge of a cliff where the ruins lay far below. From here she could see the faint glow of the core's spire, now calm and white, no longer pulsing with pain. Zira whispered under her breath, "You did it." The words faded into the wind. But somewhere she felt an answer, a quiet warmth in her chest, like a heartbeat that wasn't her own days past. Zira followed the rivers that had begun to flow again. The sky cleared, showing stars that hadn't been visible for centuries. She found abandoned camps, broken ships, traces of her people's history buried in silence. Everywhere she went, the machines lay still. Not dead, not destroyed, but asleep, waiting for a reason to wake again. At night, she built a small fire the same way he had done. The smell of smoke and cooked roots filled the air. She caught herself glancing across the flames, half expecting him to be there, a shadow, a smile, a quiet voice asking if she was hungry. But the other side of the fire stayed empty. Only the whisper of the wind answered. She began recording a message, her voice steady but soft. "This is Commander Zira of the Threxian expedition. Eltar Prime is stable. The core has entered dormant phase. If anyone receives this, the machines are not your enemies. We built them wrong. We treated them like tools instead of life." She paused, the fire crackling beside her. "I met a human who remembered what we forgot, and he gave everything so that we could begin again." She looked toward the horizon where the faint outline of the core shimmered like distant glass. Her eyes stung, but she smiled. "I will rebuild here," she said quietly. "I will keep the fire burning." She ended the transmission, knowing it might never be heard, but somehow that didn't matter. Later that night, as the moons rose, she heard something. A faint hum through the ground, rhythmic and slow. It was the same pattern she had heard when he spoke to the core. Zira stood, listening. The sound wasn't threatening. It was gentle, almost like a song. She closed her eyes. "Is that you?" she whispered. The hum grew slightly stronger, a pulse beneath the earth, and for a heartbeat. She saw him, not with her eyes, but with her memory, sitting by the fire again, turning something on the pan, looking up with that calm, knowing smile. The vision faded, but the warmth stayed. Zira laughed softly through her tears. "You're still watching, aren't you?" The wind moved through the trees, bending the flames but not extinguishing them. She took it as an answer. Months turned to seasons, the valley changed. Green spread across the land like healing skin. Creatures returned from hiding. The air grew thick with life again. Zira built a small shelter near the ruins. She taught herself to farm, to write, to listen to the core's quiet heartbeat. Sometimes she spoke aloud, telling stories to the empty fire, stories of how the world ended and began again, stories of a man who waited by the fire for his hunter. One night a storm rolled across the mountains. Lightning struck near the old spire, lighting it in blue fire for a moment. The light formed a shape, a human figure standing in the rain. Zira ran outside, wine tearing at her cloak. "Show me," she shouted. The lightning flashed again, and the figure was gone. Only the echo of the hum remained. Fading slowly into the distance, she stood in the rain until the storm passed. Then she went back to the fire. It was still burning. Refusing to die, she sat beside it, warmed her hands, and whispered, "You said everything else depends on survival." She smiled faintly. "I'm still here." The camera of her recorder blinked one last time before its power drained. The screen froze on her face, tired, scarred, but peaceful. Outside, the core glowed faintly beneath the ground, a single blue spark flickering deep within its heart. Then, as the night grew darker, the spark brightened. It pulsed once, twice, like someone breathing in their sleep far above. The stars of Eltar shimmered brighter than they had in centuries. And from somewhere deep beneath the planet's surface, a calm voice whispered through the static of the old machines, "Keep the fire burning." The wind carried the words through the valley, across the forests, and into the night sky. Zira looked up, her eyes full of light. And for the first time since the war, she smiled without fear.